Hey, solopreneurs, Gabe here. Today we have Dorothy Martin-Neville, PhD. She owns a company called Dorothy A. Martin-Neville, PhD, LLC. Short, sweet, and simple. Her bio is going to be in the show notes, but I'll just give you a quick little taste. She's an international speaker, a best-selling author, executive leadership coach, a consultant, also a past president of the National Speakers Association of Connecticut. She's the founder of 4 companies, soon to be a couple more, if all goes well. She has an amazing story that I am not going to hold you away from, and I'm going to let this jump right into it so that you guys can hear this story. It's a part of the coaching series. I think you guys are going to truly love this conversation, so give it a listen. Hey, Dorothy, thank you for being on the podcast today.
It is great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm really excited because we're doing this coaching series, and when we met, we started talking about your story, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But the history that you have to share this great information of leadership of self and mindset and options for success and burnout and boredom. There's a lot of things that go along with that
Right.
solopreneurs have a tendency to kind of fall into some of those things. And so I'm really excited to have you share that information with us today. But before we do that, I have to say we have to hear your story. I mean, there's some stuff in our our follow up form, our Q&A that I ask my guests to share, and we got to get to this story. There is some amazing information that you can share with us from your experiences that puts you from when you were born all the way to today. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure. To encapsulate a long life I've been blessed with into a short story. I started out in an orphanage. I was raised in an orphanage for a few years, and then later adopted by an Irish alcoholic cop in South Boston, and taken to the housing projects in Southie. Which in my bias is a glorious place, even if it's the housing projects. It's a great place to come from, and real pride about that. And I initially wasn't permitted in the house because my grandmother and mother did not want an illegitimate child in a good Irish Catholic home. So my dad, who was the one who wanted to adopt me, no Irish child belongs in an orphanage, was his belief system. So he would get me up at 5:30 in the morning, put me in a sunsuit or a snowsuit, depending on the season, and put me on in a playpen and leave me there until 9:30 at night after my grandmother went to bed. Bring me in, give me dinner, and then get me out in the morning. So when she was awake, there was never an illegitimate child in her home. So when she was 6, she fell, broke her hip, went into a nursing home. And at that point, I was permitted to live in the house. And it was an adventure. I mean, my blessing was living out on the streets rather than in that house. So it was an adventure, but like many people, I think, from the projects, there is a lack of understanding about life. It's really about survival in most instances. It's about survival. It's not about living your life, even though there's an amazing sense of community, an amazing sense among the neighbors. It was a time when you could walk half a mile away, and you could do that in those days, and you fall down. Any mother who saw you would bring you in and give you cookies and put a Band-Aid on it and send you back out in the street again, or make you sit down for 10 minutes till you got punished, and you pray she didn't tell your parents because you would be disciplined again when you get home. So it was a very different time. But at some point after high school, the story was you graduate from high school in May, you get married in June, which is really pretty much the standard of many of my friends, which was okay with me, but I also wanted more. And I applied to college, just couldn't go. My dad wouldn't let me go to college because girls don't deserve an education. So I applied to nursing schools and found out that I went to an unaccredited inner city high school. So no nursing school in the United States could accept me. So therefore, having more wasn't going to be an option. So my mom said, just become a waitress till you get pregnant and then stay home and raise all your children. And I thought, that's not an option I want. And the only way out I saw was becoming a Catholic nun, because there were 2 sisters I saw in my high school. I went to a Catholic school from puberty on up. My parents sent me to the nuns, so I didn't get pregnant or get sent up to reform school. So little did they know, in the 6th grade, every parent who had a precocious child was sending them all to the nuns. They should have left me in the public school where all the good kids remained. It would have been a different story. But detention became second home. you know? But in any event, I I grew up in and graduated from an unaccredited high school, so I couldn't go to college. Two of the sisters I saw had a sense of inner peace. I didn't know the terms then, but they had a sense of inner peace. And I wanted that. I had never seen anybody with a sense of inner peace in my life. And whatever they had, I wanted it. Growing up in a place where gangs had different corners and you knew to walk in the street, you didn't walk at that corner, and coming home to an extremely violent alcoholic house. Um, that inner peace was desperately what something I wanted and needed. So I applied to become a Catholic nun and realized the Catholic Church doesn't allow illegitimate children in the convent. And so no community I applied to would accept me. And one of my teachers said to me, "I suppose you're going to marry Michael right after graduation." And I said, "I guess I've applied to the convent and nobody will let me in because I'm illegitimate." And she said, "Let me see what I can do." She wrote to 1,000 communities around the globe and found one community in Canada that was not under the Pope. It was under a local bishop. And thank God for French bishops. They are different ethnic or ethic about sexuality. So I was allowed into a French Canadian community. I went to Quebec, and then they sent me to Maine and became a Catholic nun. And my mother superior said, "You're going to college." I said, "Mother, they won't let me in." She said, "If I send you, sister, they will." The power of a long black habit and a mother superior. And the dean let me in. And once you graduate with the BA, nobody really cares where you went to high school. And the story just went on, and life continued. And I left religious life at one point and moved to Manhattan, became an international airline stewardess, and got to see the world that I had never seen before growing up in the projects, and then becoming a Catholic nun where we spoke 1 hour a day and lived a very solitude type of lifestyle. And all of a sudden, I left this long black habit and I put on a micro mini and thigh-high boots and just took off and became an international airline stewardess and flew around the world over 1,000,000 miles. And I got married, moved to Connecticut, and eventually, after 5 years of working around here, stayed home and had 2 children. I was divorced after 15 years when I had a kindergartner and a fourth grader, and I needed to support them. And there's no way we were going back to the project. So I got my master's in therapy as a psychotherapist and opened up a private practice. And I was blessed. I had, within 3 months, I knew that nobody in the world knew me. So I wrote a 2-page talk and spoke at every synagogue, every church, every book club, every women's group, every place that would let me in the door. I was a horrific speaker at the time. I'm now past president of the National Speakers Association here in Connecticut, so thankfully the skills have developed. But in those days, I was just a terrified, newly divorced mom who needed to support her 2 kids. And within 3 months, I had a 6-month waiting list that lasted almost 17 years until I left the country. And so I was blessing 42 patients a week. And about 4 years in, I noticed, trying to make this really quick.
Oh no, this is great. This is fantastic. The story is great.
About 4 years in, I noticed a pattern that patients with certain personalities that were coming in to see me were developing particular disorders or diseases. And when I mentioned it with a friend who was an MD, "Have you noticed that certain personalities seem to develop particular diseases?" And he said, "No, this is coincidental. That's not really happening." And I thought, okay, so somebody else is going to tell me what I see isn't really happening. I know it is. So I did more research on it and found out that in Eastern thought, that's a reality. So I went and became certified in 7 different modalities of integrative healthcare and started integrating that into my practice. And I lost my malpractice insurance for about 6 years because therapists are not supposed to touch their patients. And I brought a massage table in to do energy work on my patients. I do those who requested it. Not everybody needed it. Some was just traditional therapy or traditional marriage counseling or whatever the case may be. But those with diseases or disorders, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, AIDS, you name it, all kinds of things, HIV, all kinds of diseases were coming into the office. I do a half-hour therapy and then a half-hour on the table to shift the energy in their bodies so they could begin to understand how our mindset impacts our physical health. And with that, then, what ended up happening is people on my waiting list began to hear what was going on in my office. And so my waiting list expanded enormously. And they asked me to develop a program to teach them what I knew while they were waiting to work with me. So I developed a 6-week program in self-healing through the human energy field. And that ended up, I said, okay, if 10 people sign, I'll do this. I think this is crazy. You don't know what you know, you just know it. So when somebody
Yeah.
says, teach me what you know, I don't know what I know, but let me see what I can put together here. So I did. I put together the 6-week program. And I said, if 10 people do it, I'll offer it on a Thursday night, 6 Thursday nights. And 32 people signed up within a week. I thought, oh my God, people really want to know this stuff. So I offered it, and I thought, I'll do this again. This is money. I'm raising my babies. This is money. So I offered it again. I ended up offering it a number of times. And eventually they said to me, there's a core group that kept coming. And I said, why do you keep coming? It's the same course. They said, no, it isn't. You extrapolate differently every time you do this. You should have a structured program. So I took a leap. This is where, what do you do? People are asking you for what you do. So I had this one business, which was my practice, my therapy practice. So I said, okay. I opened up an LLC. I did another one. I formed the Institute of Healing Arts and Sciences, created a 2-year program, and in energy work. And about 60% of my students were physicians, nurses, OTs, occupational therapists, massage therapists, physical therapists, psychologists. But some were people who wanted to open up healing practices. Some were people who simply wanted a deep level of healing on an emotional, spiritually, and physical level. And so before you know it, I had 100 students. And all of this was like, wow. I was just amazed that people wanted what I had to offer. It was one of those things. And after this 2 years, they didn't want to graduate. They said, make it a 3-year program. So again, I go back to how much do I know? I made it a 3-year program, and it stayed that way for about 12 years. And eventually my youngest left for Cornell University, and I sobbed the whole way home because I loved being a mom. And I knew from my daughter, who had just graduated from Georgetown, that once they go to college, they visit you. They don't really live with you anymore, And so like a good Irish girl, I came into my home in West Hartford and poured a large glass of red wine and just thought, okay, where do you want to go with the rest of your life? And I realized I was theoretically very successful. I was seeing 42 patients a week. I had a developing, increasing number of staff running my school. And yet I was unhappy. And I thought, what do you want to do with that? And I think we are our avatar. That is my avatar. Those are the women I work with. They're highly successful and yet realize, where did I get lost in this? What happened? How did I get here? I achieved what I theoretically thought was my goal, but I got lost in the process of achieving my goal. And I thought, when my kids were little, I would go away for a week in the summer with a girlfriend to the Caribbean, to different islands. And I always said, someday when my kids are gone, I'm out of there. And I thought, am I going to do that? And I thought, that's it. So before I finished that glass of wine, I called American Airlines, said, get me a one-way ticket to Anguilla in the British West Indies. Called an agent, said, put my house on the market. And I called my school and said, I'm leaving the country in 3 weeks. I'm moving to the Caribbean. So we'll let my patients know, but we'll also look at how I can restructure. So I had some phenomenal executive director who was running my company and my companies, and set it all up. And 3 weeks later, I landed at Walled Lake Airport on Anguilla, and I flew back to America every 2 months because classes met all day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every 2 months. And eventually, one of my students, who was an assistant head of cardiology at a local hospital, asked me to develop, they wanted to develop an integrated health department. They wanted my school to be it, to be the foundation of it, since he had graduated from my program. And he said, you're more like a medical school or a nursing school than you are because Reiki people were everywhere, but some of them trained for days, some a weekend and whatever. I said, sure. So before you know it, it was a 4-year program because many of my students had never worked in a hospital, and 3rd and 4th year students were required to do a medical internship. And because at that point, students were flying in from around the country and Canada and the Caribbean and Australia to study with me, they were all permitted to do the medical internships in whatever country they lived in or state they lived in. So I had to hire preceptors to oversee the medical internships. And so my staff kept increasing with preceptors. There was now too many students. So I had increased numbers of teachers, the numbers of TAs. And eventually it became such that I didn't know my students anymore because there were so many and they all had teachers and I wasn't it. So my students, being who they were, started labeling me the Dalai Lama. So I became the Dalai Lama, and I was like the guru who walked in the room and thought, I don't know that I like this. I liked
Hmm.
being me, you know. But now I was the Dalai Lama, and that guru who doesn't get to be human, who doesn't get to be a part of the crowd because they're so special, which is insanity. We're all in this together, The illusion of being apart from and being above is a wee bit of insanity from my perspective. So, but eventually, my work was so successful dealing with, I had developed techniques to work with a wide variety of diseases. So, some of the hospitals wanted to give us grant funding. I had received grant funding from NIH to go back and complete my dissertation on the psychological and spiritual causes of disease and disorders. They gave me $50,000 through a grant to research fibromyalgia. And now all of a sudden, other hospitals wanted to give me grant funding, but they preferred a nonprofit because of the tax write-off. So I opened up a nonprofit so that we could receive grants through that. Life just keeps going, it keeps developing. And that's really, I'm now looking at starting 2 more companies this year, but that's another story, but I'm not doing it again alone anymore. I now love the idea of doing things with partners.
Hmm.
It's more fun, and you have more expertise that comes in and helps you.
Yeah, yeah. So I have to ask. I have to ask. I mean, going all the way back. I mean, your beginnings were not exactly made for doing all of these things that have come about. I mean, there's
Or any of these things.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you either A, know to do these things? I mean, to just continuously keep moving forward. I mean, I would assume this is a mindset piece. I would assume this is a drive piece, an internal drive. And I know there are some people like, honestly, don't know. I just kept going. I just kept going. So what was what was that drive for you, or what was your mindset? I mean, to go from your beginnings. Yeah.
I would say to you initially, I just, in leaving Southie versus staying there and getting married at 17,
Yeah.
um, there was just this part of me that wanted so much more. I wanted to experience life. I wanted to experience the world that's out there that I knew nothing about. I had never been out of that. I mean, the furthest I have gone was Roxbury, which was in Dorchester, with the 2 towns next to us that were only slightly above us financially. So I'd
Hmm.
never been anywhere, So I thought I want to see what's out there, and that curiosity factor, that really a much bigger energetic footprint that would fit into getting, a tenement and having 20 babies and just laid with them all, Daniel and Sean and Shane. And my goodness, I wanted more. And so that led me to religious life. And then when I was leaving religious life, thought, what do I want to do? I went back to Southie, and my friends were either dead from Nam or in prison, or on many of them on welfare and living in the projects with their kids. And I thought, I have nothing in common. I've been a social worker. I was now college educated, a social worker. I had nothing in common. So it's a blank slate. What do I want to do with the blank slate? And it was, I want to see the world I never saw, because inside we had no magazines, no newspapers, no TV, no radio. That there's a whole world that has evolved since I left. And to me, the why go small? The best way to do that was to become an international airline stewardess, and then I could see the whole world and not just a few states away. So I think it was, I just, why not? I guess that's my question, is why not versus why should I? Why shouldn't I? And so I just jumped in. And then when I was divorced, it was, I could survive, or I could really do something that I loved, that fed me. And therapy fed me just as coaching feeds me now, to watch people go, aha, I got it. Now they're freer, they're more alive, they're more capable of achieving whatever their dreams and goals are. That ability to support others in claiming their freedom fed me. So therapy did that. And I also was not going to go back to the projects again with my babies. So what do? Well, get my master's and make it happen. And so I did. And then my clients started saying open a school, and I thought, well, and it was more of that was my goal. That wasn't my goal at all. It was more a response to what they said they needed. And then when they asked me to become part of developing an integrative health department in a hospital, it was more of a, oh my God, can you believe this? I couldn't get into nursing school. And now this place is asking me to form an integrated health department in a hospital. Damn, life is, you got to have a sense of humor. You cannot predict the way our journeys go. And so I said, sure, I'm terrified. How the heck do you do that? But yeah, I'd love to. Let's go do that together. And so I did it. And I think that's kind of what it is I love an adventure. I love a journey. It doesn't mean I don't spend a few moments into, oh my God. Oh God. I think I want to suck my thumb right now. I'll call you later. But so take a few minutes to do that. That's okay. And then after you've had a few minutes to do that, stand up, put on your big girl pants and stand up and let's get going. What's the next adventure we're gonna undertake? And go for it. And I truly want to make this world a better place. And I I believe in people. I love people. I think we're all embodied souls. I haven't practiced religion in 30 years, but I think we're all intrinsically holy good folk. And I think unfortunately so many people live in defense, whether it's in fear or hatred or anger or whatever the case may be, it's all the defense. And if I can help more and more people step out of fear and step out of the depression and sadness that comes from living in fear, or anger, and help people become free from all that stuff that can hold them down, um, I'm helping to make the world a better place. So it's what I do.
That's fantastic. That curiosity that I'm hearing is very prevalent amongst people who have achieved a lot of things, and you have achieved a ton of things, and just continuously checking the box off. Like, all right, and I love your, well, why not? Why shouldn't I? Why not? Let's give that a try. Um, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm currently involved in one of the companies we're planning on starting this year, God willing, as we're looking for $50 million to really develop a whole new healthcare plan that in buying a TPA and buying a health administrative company and really on a much larger scale, making integrative healthcare accessible for everybody because right now it's only available to people with money
Yeah.
because it's all out of pocket. It's all out of pocket expenses. And I think there's something completely immoral and unethical about that. We should all have the ability to be supported in achieving health on every level, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And so we're looking at investors. And so if you know anybody who has 50 million, they would like to support to revamp our entire medical system. I'm here and more than willing. And our CEO is Richard Ferber is amazing. And we're ready to go. We're ready to go. And he's spent many a times in Europe and Asia, really handling $1 billion deals and $100 million deals and working with so anything's possible. And that's it. I think anything is possible. And why not go out and make it happen? You know?
I would agree. I would agree. So that's going to lead me to what you're going to talk about a little bit with us today, and you've kind of interwoven a lot of the your history, which then brings this great experience and insights to our listeners of, you know, what are maybe some things you can share regarding, the leadership of self and business or mindset and options for success, burnout, boredom, all these things that come about.
Well, what I share with the only reason I share my history, it really has no value for anybody else in and of itself, is simply because of the life lessons we can all learn from it. The facts are just the facts. It is what it is or what it was. We're not our past. But for me, burnout comes, all of those things come, burnout, depression, anxiety, when we forget who we are, when we start believing the messages people give us. And for me, it is imperative, and I mean in this literally imperative, that we do meditation or mindfulness or whatever the word is that makes you feel comfortable, that in the morning before we get out of bed, and then in the evening before we go to sleep. That reflection time that allows us to stop and look within. As I explain it to my clients, you're sitting here in this chair, and on the other side of the room, the far side of the room, are all the lovers you've had, all the friends you've had, all the jobs you've had, the family you were born into, perhaps a family you've created, and all of those other adventures you've had. That's on the other side of the room. That's the life you created. None of that is who you are. And when you can remember that I am not the life I created, I am so much more than that, which is why I could create it. I've created that life. I created those opportunities, or I took those opportunities that were presented to me. All right. So I did that. But over here is the woman who is the creator, or the man who is the creator. And so, that being the case, I have to remember I am not all of that. So when I get lost in that, I've betrayed the person sitting in this chair. And so in the morning when I wake up, before I get out of bed, how do I feel today? Did I wake up depressed? Did I wake up anxious? Did I wake up excited? And if so, spend 2 minutes. What was that about? Don't go into deep analysis that has you trapped and weighted down all day. What a waste of time. What is that? What happened overnight for me? Was it a dream? Was it something else? Where am I? And it's one of a million emotions I have within me. Which one do I want to walk in today? Not denying that I'm anxious or I'm depressed, or just thoroughly accepting I woke up filled with excitement. Owning that. And I'll look at it more if I don't understand it now. But today I want to be up. Today I want to be ready. I've got these 2 projects I want to get done. Let's go and get out of bed with the emotion I've chosen, because they're all in here. Not denying what was, deal with it, then go for it and make it happen. And at the end of the day, if what I'm looking at is my tendency to say yes when I know I'm already overloaded, when I go to bed, did I say yes to anything today? Did I betray myself today? Even though it's a small thing, I'm already way down. And I said yes to one more. What's weighing me down is 24 small things. So why did I throw another small thing on top of the pile? So let's look at how I can develop the ability to say no without creating a story over how somebody is going to be devastated or destroyed because of my no. No, they're not. They're simply going to ask somebody else. They are fine. You're the only one that's weighted with this. So I think those periods of reflection give us permission to develop a mindset. And remember, we're here. We're on our own spiritual journey. We're walking our own path. And what's that about for me? And what are my values in that? And if my values are my purpose in my career, and my values are my family, how am I living those values? What am I doing with that?
Is there a journal that you're using to kind of give you the prompts, or is it do you advise your clients to do that? What are your thoughts there?
I have my clients. I don't use a journal. I tried it once because somebody said you should be doing this, and it became it's one more job for me to do. I don't journal. It doesn't work for me. But I tell my folks, if journaling works, do it. If meditation tapes work, do it. If pure silence, whatever works for you is your right way. There's no one right way to much of anything. If whatever works for you that supports you, if it's journaling, do it. And some of my clients have loved the journaling. That called them to stop and reflect. Perfect. Then that's your tool. Find what works for you. I know the meditation or the mindfulness, and some people do that while they're running. If that's when it works for you, do it while you're running. I'm not a runner. I've seen too many people in my office with damage from running, so I'm not really a big avid person for running, but I know some others love the high. So go for it. I'm not here to change your lifestyle unless you're willing to do so. But if you love it, do it while you're running, whatever it is. For me, it's while I'm still laying in bed. So find what works for you, But it's the job, if you will, the objective is to realize that your mindset defines what you accomplish. Your mindset defines where you stop yourself. Your mindset defines the stories you tell yourself. And rarely are the stories we tell ourselves positive. Most of the stories we tell ourselves limit us. So recognize you are not the story. And the story is just developed when you're in a place that's self destructive. Your stories don't get developed when you're in a place that supports you, 9 times out of 10.
Those stories are amazing. I have a podcast here recently that was regarding mindset and the stories that we tell ourselves from all the way from when we were raised through how we were raised to our culture to everything. Those stories affect everything. And it's amazing how some people have figured out how to tame the monkeys in the mind and some people have not. And so I guess my question for you would be is, speaking of mindset, how, if someone is struggling, my wife calls it the monkey mind from her yoga training. How do people tame the monkeys in the mind?
To me, it's always a reframe. And just to take a personal story, back in the days when I went from the orphanage into a playpen outside, from 5:30 in the morning to 9:30 at night in Boston, it's a wee bit cold here in the wintertime. And my mom would say, you love the cold so much you would have your hats and gloves off when your dad and I came home from work, and your hands would be beet red and your ears, and Daddy would put your hat and gloves on before we all went in for dinner. And I'm thinking, okay, we could do pity for this poor girl. We could see why she's enraged. We should see why she's out there destroying people. We can see why she's on drugs or whatever. Or we could look at it. Here's a child left to her own for 3 years out in a playpen. Didn't go to nursery school because someone would have to take me or pick me up, and whatever the case may be. So there I was. Or we could say, there's a child who found a way. One, I escaped living in that house. Thank God, that was a gift of 3 years of not living in that house. But also, out there on my own, I began to recognize I got to do it. If it's going to happen, I got to do it. Whatever it may be, I have to make it happen. That person who knows that they can do it out there becomes the independent pioneer. And for me, it was becoming a pioneer in integrative healthcare here in the United States. Pioneers have to walk alone out there. You want lots of people around you if you have a big vision. Like I have my teachers, my preceptors, a phenomenal staff. But you're out there by yourself. You're leading. And if you're going to lead, you have to be willing to stand out there alone. You have to be willing to claim that I am, that we all possess. I am. And those years forced me to recognize, or gave me the choice, let me rephrase that, of owning the I am. So that standing out there to say, this is who I am, allowed me to move into that house. And when I saw what was going on, say to my father, who was a former semi-pro ball player, and here I am, this little 6-year-old, say to him, you can't beat up my mommy and brothers and sisters, and start taking him on. So I became the one that took him on all those years until I left, at 17, to protect my brothers and sisters and my mom. And so what happens is this 3 years gift of independence and my I am created something people who had been beaten down from birth weren't able to do. All right. It also said, I will. So you want me to start an integrative health department? I will. I need to form a company to support my kids? I will. I will. It becomes, and so you stand out there, you become that pioneer and make it happen. There's an inner strength that all of us possess, but some of us, through circumstance or whatever, more readily tap into it and make it happen. So I think reframing whatever the story is, you poor little thing, nobody understands the troubles you've seen. How can I reframe the troubles I've seen? How did they help me grow? How did they strengthen me? I'm not denying the facts, but how can I look at those in a way that supports me becoming even more of who I truly am, rather than less of what I'm capable of being? And reframe constantly, reframe what's going on, which is what I do with my clients all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Helping to reframe the stories is the tool
Yeah.
that I've heard as well. I'm glad to hear you pretty much in the simplest of terms repeated that same thing I've heard. You got to reframe the stories, but it's great to hear your story, how you've reframed it, and how you have, for lack of put it, helped other people reframe their stories,
Yeah.
which is very, very powerful.
From my approach to coaching, that's so much of what we do is reframe the stories people are telling themselves. One of my clients, and then others continued it, has said to me at one point, and I was with her for almost 4 years, she kept re-upping. At the end of the first year, I said to her, I can refer you out if you want to work with somebody else, or you can take a break. And she said, are you kidding me? I'm going nowhere. She said, you hold my heart while you kick my ass. She said, I know I am completely accepted by you, and there's not an ounce of judgment that comes from you. But you kick my ass whenever a story comes up. And this woman was a highly successful woman running a hospital division. And so poor me really wasn't a viable option story for her, but yet we all can go there, okay? Because life isn't always easy. It's simple, but it's not always easy. And so kicking her ass, as she would phrase it, was really, is that really the truth? Or is that a truth you're telling yourself? So let's look at another way to see the picture and how we can go forward with that. I think it's a really effective coaching tool that supports people recognize there's no limit unless they want one.
That's amazing. I really appreciate you sharing that story as well. What I'm going to do now is make a little transition because I think the golden nugget that you just shared was we need to reframe our stories, and then understanding how you did it and how you've helped other people is worth the time that anybody has spent listening today, which I think is just great. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. I am going to make that little transition. This is a podcast about money, and I always have 3 questions I'd like to ask everybody. And so the first question is, what is the smartest thing you've ever done regarding money? And what is that story?
The smartest thing, let me think. I can think of all kinds of things I would do differently this time. But what's the smartest thing I've done? I think when I bought my first home with my children, we lived in a home in Granby, which is a small, at the time, was a half rural suburban area, and did everything I could and owned it for a number of years. So made a huge profit. Took half of it and put it towards the mortgage of a new home I bought in the city when we moved to the city when they started high school. And the other half I kept in savings and used some to fix the house up a bit, and the rest stayed in savings. So I had this sense of security. And again, it's all mindset. It's all mindset. I had this sense of security that no matter what happened, we were going to be okay. We would be fine no matter what happened. That took so much stress off of me. And I'm so aware stress is where disease comes from. All right. Stress weakens the immune system, which sets us up to be predisposed to whatever disease we're going to develop. And that was an amazing gift. I didn't even know the extent of the benefit of that, but it was a great gift I gave myself. Having that cushion that said, you're going to be okay.
And that is one of the biggest questions that comes up when I meet with my clients. It's really all they really want to know is, am I going to be okay?
Right.
That okay might mean retirement, might mean, am I going to be okay if we have an emergency? Am I going to be okay because I need to put braces in my kids' mouths? I mean, what are those things that I need to be able to do? And so that was a very smart move on your part to make sure that you had that security that gave you the ability to go, okay, no matter what happens, I know I'm going to be okay. So
Right.
thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So let's go the other side of it. What's the biggest money mistake you've ever made, and what is that story?
Those I can tell you many. Let's see. The biggest one I would say would be when I moved to Anguilla. Emotionally, it was a godsend. I lived there for 10 years. And it was in the Caribbean. It forced me to realize I dropped onto a country, the small country, 6,000 people in the whole country. The whole country is 32 square miles. It's the size of some small towns here, in the States. And I loved it because it was community based. Everybody was there. And someone said to me, you don't have to like everybody here, but you have to live with everybody here. And like, what a phenomenal mentality. I love it here. And another man had said to me, as long as one man can fish, nobody in our country will ever go hungry. And I thought, oh my God, I want to live in this environment. All right. So it fed my heart and soul. It brought me back to life again after being spending all those years raising the kids alone and doing all the building companies and doing this, that it brought me back. But if I were to look now, I gave up maybe $500,000 every year by moving there. I mean, I certainly was fine, but it might have been much smarter for me to stop. But I didn't have a financial planner because my thought was always, I don't have enough money to have a financial planner. When I have, an extra million, when I have an extra whatever, I'll get a financial planner. But I don't know I'll ever have that kind of money, so I'll never do this. And so I never did. So when that happened, I now look back and think, you gave up a fortune. You had a private practice that you were running in addition to all these other things. You gave up a small fortune. If you had banked that during those years and gone to Anguilla 2 or 3 months a year and just gone away for a month every quarter or 3 weeks or whatever every quarter and kept that business going, I would be in a very different place than I am financially now. And I'm fine, thank you. But I mean, I would be in a very different place than I am now. But hindsight is marvelous. Hindsight is marvelous. And you learn that going forward, if I'm going to do something really dramatic, which there's nothing much subtle about me, okay? But how can I do this in the most beneficial way financially, emotionally, and spiritually? And there's not a whole lot of judgment there. I realized growing up where I did, financial planners weren't really on the top of everybody's mindset. Making the money last until Saturday was on everybody's mindset, so they can feed all of their kids and having peanut butter and crackers for snacks. So or after dinner if you're still hungry, and that was kind of where. So financial planning wasn't a skill set I was taught. So it's something you learn later. You learn later in life, but at some point you realize, there's a whole lot I don't know that I need to know, and I'm not getting an MBA, so why not find somebody who's smart and can understand finances and business and support me in the process?
Yeah, I'd like to have you just follow me around for a while and talk to people and share that little story because there are so many, and there's a lot of listeners right now that are probably going, man, I really needed some advice, but I can't afford it.
Right.
Or I don't think I can afford it. The mindset is that I can't afford it. I'm reminded of a post that I just saw on LinkedIn. There was a post on LinkedIn that another financial advisor shared that posed the question of, how come small business owners and solopreneurs and entrepreneurs will go spend X amount thousands of dollars on a branding campaign. They'll spend X thousand dollars on a social media campaign. They'll spend X thousand of dollars on those types of programs and hope that they're going to get a return, hope they're going to get business out of it, hope they're going to grow and increase revenues. And yet when it comes to thinking about bringing a financial planner, financial advisor into their lives to help advise them to not only save money, reduce taxes, build that emergency fund, or get yourself prepared for those changes. And even in your case, say, hey, why don't you think about taking this time and go to Anguilla for a month at a time instead of getting rid of your practice? I mean, what could that look like?
Right.
And that post was on LinkedIn, and the gentleman tagged me in it and said, hey, what do you think? And I said, the mindset really of most small business owners and solopreneurs, you just wrapped it up. I can't afford those people until I have $1 million, or I need another million to do it. And in all reality, that's not the case.
Right. But
yeah.
A piece of it was affording it. But the larger piece of that for me wasn't really the whatever it would have been at that time, $100, $200 for a session or whatever it was at that time. It was more of, I have no money to manage. Why do I want a financial planner? Somebody help manage my money when I don't have any money to manage. My money is going into universities. My money is going into expanding my business. My money is going into whatever that I don't have a whole lot of money left over. That's worth planning about. When I have an extra million, now I can plan. What am I going to do with that extra million? But if I've got an extra
Yeah.
50,000 or something, I don't know, pick a number, any number. Um, what can I plan on? I need that there in case something pops up. I don't, planning my money or investing. So it becomes more, at this point, clearly I have a lot more wisdom than I did before, but now it's very different. I don't care if it's an extra 4,000. What can I do with that? I can collect $4 a share in interest at the bank, or I could invest it in something and do something with it. What's the difference? And so if it goes 40,000 or 400,000, we're talking different amounts of money here. But when you're thinking that to have a financial planner, to have somebody to support your investments, to have a, I've always had an accountant and a CPA and those, but to have somebody to do that, you need to have a lot of money to play with. And when you don't believe you have a lot of money to play with, and now a lot of money is relative, we know that. For some people, if I have an extra 100 in the bank, I've got a lot of money. For somebody else, unless I've got 5 million in the bank, I don't have a lot of money. So that's a relative term.
Right.
But when you I think it's something like 60-80% of our country now cannot afford an unexpected $300 bill. Oh my God, my heart goes out to those people. So what's a lot of money? It really depends on who you are. But it's that understanding that whatever you've got, if you can put a percentage away and somebody can help you with that.
Well, and then on top of it, the advice that comes as a result from a great relationship with a financial advisor, and this is not me giving a sales pitch, but it's the additional advice
Right.
to help guide you down the road to make the right decisions and avoid the big mistakes.
Yeah.
That can help you be even better prepared down the road. And that's what this other financial advisor's whole point was we can help you make sure you don't make the big mistakes. We can guarantee you that we're going to help you, reduce your expenses, increase your savings, and therefore reduce your taxes, etc. And he was wanting to know, like, well, why is it different? But why are people not getting it? And the reality is, you said it perfectly. My money is going for universities to pay for my kids to go to college. My money's going to support my business, to do the things I'm doing. I don't think I can afford that, when in all reality, a great advisor can step in and plan and help you manage the whole picture. I like to liken it to almost being a football coach or a sports coach by any means. We can see the whole field. We know where every piece is supposed to go, and then can advise you to go this way or go that way.
Right.
And it's an interesting piece that over time, you've learned that as well.
Yeah.
Over time. Like, okay, well, earlier I did not know that. Now I do. And so my need to continue this part of that conversation probably needs to stop before this turns into a big sales pitch.
I think it really is important, especially for so many entrepreneurs, because you don't. And as I say, this is a serial entrepreneur now. There'll be 6 countries I'm involved in starting if things go well this year, and that the understanding that no matter how much you've got, having support and advice and working with it is an amazing gift yourself. And whatever you think a lot or a little is relative. Deal with somebody else who knows that even if it's in your mind's eye, nothing much, it's a great place to start. And I think that's what so many folks don't understand. And so many, as we see why so many small businesses fail, because so many folks understand little to nothing about what it means to have a business, because they don't understand being a business person. They understand they have an interest they want to bring to the world, but that's the difference between an entrepreneur and a small business person. If you're going to move from entrepreneur to small business person, you're developing a business mindset, and that requires advice. That requires support. Not just your bookkeeper or your CPA for taxes at the end of the year. You need somebody to help you. And I think most don't have that awareness. They're waiting until they have that $1 million to say, oh, I think a financial planner would be a really good idea. When it would have been great way back when you had that $40. They could have helped you begin the process.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
I'm going to transition to the last question, and that is, what does mastering your finances mean to you?
What it means to me is being in a place where I don't have to think about my finances, literally. Because what it says to me is I'm in a place where I am living beneath my means. I'm living beneath, because I'm making more money doesn't mean I need another car or a bigger car or a bigger house or a whatever. That mastering my finances means I'm living the lifestyle I'm comfortable with, that I love, that supports me, that feeds me. And everything else that comes in, I'm able to have somebody else support me, work with that well, with their expertise, and help me do that, so that I have somebody I can trust and rely on to support me with my money, so that I'm here living in a way that supports me, that allows me freedom and joy and an adventure when I want one. And it says I'm not worried every day about, am I going to be able to pay that electric bill? But it also says that I'm not taking off and buying every new car that comes out just because it's out there, whether I can afford it or not. That I have a financial mindset that has me comfortable with where I'm going and what I'm doing. Then to me it's mastered, because it's not governing me. It doesn't govern what I can do and not do. It's there to support me. So someday, in another 30, 40 years, if I ever get old, I'm going to be okay, you know?
I love it. Absolutely love it. So, Dorothy, how can my listeners find you if they would like to?
They can go to my website, askdrdorothy.com. That's ASKDRDOROTHY. They can drop me an email at Dorothy at askdrdorothy.com.
Fantastic. Well, this was a fantastic interview. I really enjoyed our conversation and truly appreciate you being on Solopreneur Money. So, thank you very much, Dorothy.
Thank you. This has been an absolute delight. I've done hundreds of podcasts. This is the first one that was really about finances, and wow, what an adventure! Thank you so very much for the experience.
Well, Solopreneurs, I don't know if you got as much out of that as I did, but I absolutely loved that conversation with Dorothy. It was fantastic. I can't even imagine going through the life that she has gone through, and then to reach the levels of success that she has been truly inspiring. I'm going to give you one big takeaway. My big nugget from this conversation was reframing the stories that the monkeys are telling you in your head. To use my wife Melissa's way to say it is, the monkey mind starts to go and the stories start going. The biggest thing is just take the time to reframe the stories and remember that those stories are not you. You can change those stories, and you can change the way you go about life. And it all starts with your mindset. I really, truly hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, please share it with a friend. Please give us 5 stars and have a fantastic day.